Now, you might be thinking, okay, why will a rebrand not save me? It's a growth strategy after all, isn't it? Isn't it? I mean, that's the logical next step when you kind of get a bit of money, get a bit of investment. You might be thinking, oh, this old brand is not very me. I've become someone different now. I've become a bit more premium, if you will, or maybe you've got a different sense of direction. But in that case, yes, but also no. Because what a rebrand is, it's essentially a cosmetic redo. It's like a makeover. Obviously, it's a lot more complex than that. Like, there's a lot of research that goes into a rebrand if you're working with a good designer, right? But it's not necessarily always the best way to go. And you might be thinking why. Okay, let me put it into perspective for you. Imagine you've got this car. It's kind of rusty, kind of, you know, it's just a bit, it works, but it doesn't really work. And you put a fresh paint of coat on it. What does that change about the car? It just looks different. It still drives the same. It still has the same issues. The brakes still squeak when you hit them, but it looks different, right? Now, in some cases, saying that a rebrand won't save you, might not even help you. It might be a controversial thing to say, because you might be thinking, okay, it's time to go to the next level. I've scaled my business up a bit. I'm able to get sales. I'm able to kind of convert people. So it's the next logical step, right? It's a growth strategy after all, isn't it? Well, not necessarily. Let me put this into perspective for you. Say you've got this car. This car's been somewhat reliable. It's been getting you places, but it's been throwing up some problems. Say maybe the clutch isn't really what it used to be. Maybe the brakes squeal when you press them. Those types of things. So what do you do with this car? Do you put a fresh coat of paint on it to make it look different, to make it look a bit more fancy? No, you wouldn't do that because it will still have the same problems, even though it looks a bit more expensive. You might get a few people kind of like, wow, that's a cool car. Might get a few people turning their heads, but it still doesn't change the way that this car drives. And in this case, this relates directly to your brand because you've got this brand, it gets you places, but it still has some issues. Maybe you know about these issues, maybe you don't know that there's issues, but you know something's up. Why would you then put a fresh coat of paint on it when you know damn well that this isn't the way to go, that there isn't a different, maybe not a problem, but different signs that something is up? Because when you're too focused on the aesthetics, and this is coming from a designer, by the way, like, I've spent years, I've looked at thousands of websites, I've seen it all. But when you focus on these aesthetics, it's very easy to start ignoring everything else. It's easy to ignore the root problems, say the communication issues. What are you actually saying to your clients? Are they even understanding what you're selling? Because this is a massive, massive part. A lot of the times, the clients, they don't even know what they're buying. So how can you sell to someone when you don't know what you're selling to them? Well, maybe you know, because obviously you know your brand, you know what you sell, but do you know how other people are perceiving it, how other people are picking up on it? Or are you just making assumptions? Because let me tell you a little bit of an insight about when I used to work for a company. They were a startup. They had a pretty cool product. I'm not going to go into too many details, because I can't really talk about it, right? But what I can talk about is the rebrand and how it wasn't necessarily successful, because it wasn't a case of not having a big enough budget. They definitely made it a priority. They were very on it. They really wanted to look more expensive. They wanted to attract people into them. And why this rebrand failed is because they essentially had the same messaging. it was still confusing. No one knew what they sold, and they had spent a lot, of money on it. A eye-watering amount of money on it. So it wasn't a skill issue. It wasn't a budget issue. It was simply the fact that no one knew what they were buying. So yes, it made a big impression, because I'm not saying it looked bad. It was cool. The website was cool. Well, I have opinions about the website, but we're not gonna go there. This is not in this video, right? But yeah, they made a bigger impression, right? But at the end of the day, what were they selling? Even at some points, I was confused about what they were selling, because they were explaining it rather than selling it. And okay, like, it's cool when you explain it, but why would I buy this service? You're just telling me facts, and I'm like, I like a fact, but it's not. It doesn't feel urgent enough to buy it. Do you know what I mean? And when I say it didn't feel urgent enough to buy, I mean I did not feel anything when looking at this brand. I just thought, okay, that's a cool logo. That's a decent website. Wow. And then I moved on with my day. I simply did not care about it, apart from saying, wow. And then what? I forgot about it. It didn't stand out. It did not speak to me. Even as an employee, I was still confused about what they were selling. And I worked for them. I was in those meetings. We discussed this product many, many times. And I was still confused. So what did this rebrand solve? Absolutely nothing. It just looks different. It's got a fresh gloss paint on it. Still has the same communication and sales issues. If anything, in this case, the rebrand was a massive distraction, because everyone was just focusing on about how different it looks, because it did look different. I'm not saying it doesn't look different. And they just ignored the same problems they had. It still wasn't converting. The user journey was not improved. Still, no one reached out to them despite the budget they had, despite the efforts they put into it. Still, none of that worked. And I'll even let you in on a little designer secret, right? Designers love a rebrand. They will jump at the chance for a full rebrand. They want to tear everything apart and start afresh. They're just looking for someone to just say, oh, I think I need a rebrand. I've outgrown this. They are looking for that, and they will jump at the chance to do a rebrand. And you might be thinking, why? Why is that a bad thing? Let me explain to you. Because for designers, a rebrand is that higher ticket sale. They get to create a bunch of new assets. They get to do a bigger project. They get to charge more. And that's why they'll always jump at the chance of a rebrand, because you know what? It is a big project. It does take a bit of skill, a lot of skill, to do a rebrand and to do it nicely as well. Because say you're a designer, why would you want to do a bunch of little projects when you can just focus on one big project, charge a higher price, and get something proper, right? So that's essentially the reason why a designer will always try and convince you to do a rebrand. Not every designer, but a lot will, because it is a competitive industry after all. You know, you want a bigger project, you don't want the smaller projects, but from an honest perspective, from someone who's seen rebrands, someone who's done rebrands, it's not always the way to go. I've seen in many cases that redesigns, they can be a bit of a trap, especially when someone's got it in their mind that, okay, we just need to look better and then we'll get more sales, we'll get like a higher ticket audience. But that's not necessarily the case, because in many cases, you're just simply explaining things in a different font and color. Your messaging is still the same because you haven't actually changed anything. Sure, you might have even paid good money for that. You might be planning to pay good money for that. But it's like, it links back to this car analogy. you have to think about all the other components in your business. Is everything running smoothly? Do you have a good user journey? Do you have, do you know who's buying from you? Do you know why people are buying? Are you assuming that people understand what you're saying just because you've thought about it so many times that it becomes second nature to you? Is there someone else you can ask how they perceive you? Literally ask your clients, ask a random person on the street, okay, this is my website, this is my brand. What do you think I sell? What would they tell you? And what do you think that you are selling? What's the gap between that? Is there even a gap? Maybe that isn't even your issue, but you won't know until you kind of investigate that. But until you investigate that, do not invest in any kind of rebrand. And I've noticed a lot of founders, they like to do this thing where they hide behind the brand when the brand hasn't really done anything. It's you that's done everything. So why are you letting this entity take the credit for your work? Why are you letting it speak for you when you could integrate yourself into the brand? I'm not saying it has to be founder led, but what I'm saying is you shouldn't let the brand lead you. You should be the one leading your brand. And that is essentially the main reason why I'm asking you, why I'm challenging your perspective about a rebrand. Because for a rebrand to feel like an investment rather than another necessary cost that you have to put into your business, it should make you feel like you're selling and not explaining. And, think about, what are you selling? Will look in a different way help me sell? And in some cases, it might, but you should really consider that before you even consider investing in a rebrand. Because I've not seen a lot of people, I haven't seen really anyone talk about this, about the hidden cost of a rebrand, which is especially relevant if you've got existing clients and suddenly these clients, they've trusted you for a while, years, months, whatever it is, and then suddenly you switch up on them. You look fancy now. What are they going to be thinking? All that trust that you've built, and suddenly a fresh coat of paint. Who is this person? This is not who you buy from. This is not what made us click in the first place. Think about your branding as an investment rather than another cost, rather than something that you have to do because that's what everyone else does. Think about what makes you feel like you're selling and not explaining, because a lot of the times when I do a redesign, I just move things around. I remove things. I don't add things. I look at how much can I remove to make it more understandable. And that is essentially the main reason why I'm challenging your perspective on a rebrand. Yes, you might want to look better, but there are other ways to look better. You don't have to scrap away everything you've worked for just to look a different way. Because essentially this links back to the very point of why a rebrand won't save you. Will a rebrand stop you from answering the same 10, 15, 20 questions? If it does, great. If it doesn't, congratulations. You're answering the same questions in a different font and in a different color. Because you don't need to be answering the same 10, 15, 20 questions over and over and over again. That's what your brand is there for, to answer the questions that people have. Your brand is not there for you to hide behind it. Your brand is not there to speak for you. Your brand is to answer people's questions. And what questions is it answering? Mainly, is this for me? Do I want to buy this? Why should I buy this? And that's how you build that kind of connection through your brand rather than hiding behind your brand. But since Maybe I've challenged your perspective on a rebrand. Maybe you think you need it all. Maybe you think you don't need it at all. Here are a few things that you should do to actually help you sell yourself and communicate a little bit better. What you want to do, first of all, is identify all the points where you're making people think a bit too hard. Because people are lazy, they don't want to think too hard. They want to have it handed on a plate. They want to know what you're selling on a plate. They're ready to buy. They just need that confirmation that you are for them. And this can be things such as, are you making them dig too hard to contact you if they want to purchase from you? If they want to buy from you, what's the first point? Can they see it? Is there a call to action? Are you sending them somewhere? Do you have an address? Do they have to find you? Do they have to put in a lot of effort to look for you? Which links into my next point, which is about stop thinking about how you look, stop thinking about how you come across, and think about what the people you're selling to want to see from you. So, do they want to see reliable? Do they want to see innovative? Do they want a bit more of a connect with the community? You know your own target audience. What do they want to see? And that's what your brand should follow. It should be answering the questions before they've even got a chance to ask them. Second of all, do they know what you're selling to them? How are you signaling that you are for them? And I say this because this is such a massive issue where there's this nice website, perfectly developed. You've got all the recent design trends, cool transitions. But then I think about, oh, okay, this looks cool. I want to buy. I don't even know what I'm buying. Hell, I've explained earlier in my own company, what are you selling? It's not explained. You've got a nice design, but what am I buying? What are you selling? And one of my final points to add to this video is to add by removing. Remove the questions that someone might have before approaching you. And we've not worked together, so I don't know what kind of questions people are asking you, but I'm sure that you know what kind of questions people are asking you. Whether people are confused about your services, maybe they need a location, maybe they need a way to contact you, maybe they're wondering if you do things a certain way. This is something that you should clarify. This is something that your brand should say for you. And your brand can say this through many different ways. Say visually, do you look approachable or do you look exclusive? Do you look like the industry you work in? Or maybe you're taking a bit of a different angle, so you look a bit different. And your branding largely also comes from your tone and your communication. So what kind of tone are you using with people? Is it kind of a warm, inviting tone? Or is it a more straight to the point tone, as in, we'll fix this for you, we'll get this done, or come work with us, you'll get this kind of experience? That's essentially what your brand is. You don't need to paint over, you don't need to make it look different. You just need to make people feel a certain way when they work with you. And you've already done half of that just by being you. So, to close off, remember, the best branding is not actually about the design, it's about being understood instantly. Your business likely already has everything it needs to succeed. It's just hidden behind a messy system, a messy visual system. And if your current visuals, if your current brand is making you work hard for every sale, it's making you explain yourself, it's not the time to start redesigning, but it is this time to start refining, to start removing, to start clarifying. That's it from me for now. You will be hearing from me again. And I'm Angelica, I'm here to help you stop explaining what you do and start showing why you're the only choice. And I'll see you in the next one. See ya.